To say, oh, a bill was generated, invoice, whatever, you have to pay X amount, and then they can go log in?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll get a physical, they'll get a digital email.
Digital email.
Okay.
Yes. So I sign up for that, so you get an email, you can, it's an attachment, so you can go up to see what it is. And I'm signed up for Virtual City Hall as well, so in that same email, I can click on the link there, go right into Virtual City Hall and make that payment right away.
Okay, perfect. It sounds like it is doing what I think is important that it needs to do, which is provide some kind of alert that a bill is owed, like even when initially the bill comes out. And then it's even better that it has a you are late type of thing to remind people when that comes up. Because the only challenge is when you don't have a physical piece of paper that's stuck to your fridge or something like that, you might not get that push and reminder that you are used to. Yeah, it's great that we're encouraging people to do that. I know I've said this as well several times, but I really like the idea of monthly billing. I think it's good for the people who are consuming, and I think it's good for the city. It's a win-win, and I'm happy to see it start here in April. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you for the answer, Ken. If you want to just hang tough just in case, we'll let you get away that easily. Councilor Monroe.
Just to confirm, but it doesn't alert you when you have, it won't say like, you have a new bill from the city of Lloydminster. It only will alert you if you're late, or if you, and it will alert you for your receipt, but it won't say you have a new bill from the city of Lloydminster. I've been signed up for months, and I just double checked to look, and I've never seen one in my inbox that says, you have a new bill from the city of Lloydminster. Unless it's going to my spam, but when I just checked now, it wasn't in there.
So the way it's set up, the emails are sent out
Whenever the new bill prints?
when the new bill prints within 3 business days of the read date. Those emails do go out with the attachment, yes. So you might want to just check with the bill
Yeah.
and make sure they have the right email address for you,
Okay, no worries.
or check your spam.
Yeah, Councillor, I just actually talked to IT back there and they confirmed that.
It does?
When your new bill comes up, it'll be emailed to you.
To your inbox.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we can for surely verify that, but that's our understanding.
but yeah, and I mean, the other alternative is that now bills are gonna be just on a certain date as well, so people are gonna know that they're coming out on, what was the days that they picked, the 15th and there'll be 2 cycle billings, correct?
There'll be just one cycle billing at the end of each month.
Once you get everybody,
Right, but at the first time, there's going to be.
First time around, and so there was people that billed at February 15th. So they'll get billed March 31st, which is a month and a half.
Right,
The other half was on February 28th, and they'll get billed on March 31st.
so it's not gonna be random days like it is right now. So that's the
Right.
other good thing, is that if you don't get an alert, you're gonna know our bill came out at the end of the month, right? So you'll know to log in and check your bill, even if you didn't get an alert.
Right, and that's some of the issues we're having with postal deliveries.
Great,
Some people don't get the bills, or they show up 1 to 2 weeks later.
great. Okay.
any other questions? Councilor Forrest.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just something you just said there at the end, I think it was different than what I thought before, because I thought that there was going to be a shorter stub period for one group and then a regular month period, because you said one would be 45 and one would be 30. So I think it's important as a city that we let people know that, you know, they're going to get this first one that's 1 month, that's actually 45 days, because some people are going to think that they're getting a raw deal. Because I was under the understanding it was going to be a 15-day stub for that one. No, it was always going to be 45?
So for those bills that went out, there was 2 separate bills out. They each received their own insert explaining the process for their particular bill.
Oh, okay, so it'll be a different insert for those individuals who are on the 45-day cycle for that final bill.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Councilor Monroe.
Just want to clarify that, when I did look now, it's just because it's every 2 months, right? So you do get a City of Lloydminster utility bill do not reply notification that says that your bill is there. Perfect, sorry, I didn't look 2 months back. Good.
Good, you'll be getting one very shortly, Councilor. Everybody gets taken care of in the city. So, any other questions for Ken or the administration? Thank you very much, Ken. No further questions. I'll look for council's direction on 6.1.2. Councilor Kevin.
That council grant bylaw 03-2019, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 26-2016, second reading.
Seconded, Councilor Batchor. Any further discussion before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor?
The council grant bylaw 03-2019, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 26-2016, third and final reading.
Seconded, Councilor Batchor. Any further discussion before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 6.3, City Manager, Officer Clerk. Coming back to the City Clerk, I imagine?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The matter is before you is support for Resource Communities of Canada Coalition. And the recommendation is the council resolve to support the Resource Communities of Canada Coalition, and the mayor be authorized to provide letters of support on behalf of the City of Lloydminster. The Alberta Urban Municipalities Association is requesting the communities pass resolutions of support for the Resource Communities of Canada Coalition. President of the AUMA met with the sister municipal associations across Western Canada to discuss the forming of a Resource Communities of Canada Coalition. During this meeting, they agreed that there was the need to coordinate the Canadian municipal voice to advocate for responsible resource industry, ensure municipal perspectives are being heard on issues impacting resource development, share factual information regarding resource development interests. All AUMA members are invited to become involved in this movement. The AUMA intends to initially focus on three primary activities: an education campaign at the FMC or FCM conference being held in Quebec this year, Bill C-69 advocacy, and formally establishing the Resource Communities of Canada Coalition. The Canadian resource industry is the backbone of our economy and is key to Canada's future prosperity. Lloydminster is the home and hub of the resource economy in this region, and sees daily the direct economic benefits of this industry and the impact that the current economic situation has on its residents. AUMA will be providing an educational campaign at the FCM conference directed at elected officials, which will encompass the positive benefits of the resource and energy sectors. The AUMA will then formally establish the group with the detailed terms of reference after the conference. The options are the council resolve to support the Resource Communities of Canada Coalition, and that the mayor be authorized to provide letters of support on behalf of the City of Lloydminster, or the council direct administration to obtain further information and report back their findings at a future council meeting. Currently, there is no request for funding that has been made at this time, but however, it is possible as the coalition forms that the AUMA may seek financial support from its members.
Thank you, City Clerk. I'd like to speak to this. I had the opportunity to have several discussions with the President of AUMA and the President of SUMA. Both organizations are working on this. The AUMA kicked it off from the request of letters of support. This has been an area that's been very near and dear to every community in Canada. And certainly any community that has resources and energy, and when I say resources, we talk about mining, forestry, agriculture, aquaculture, and of course energy development. Some of the work that's going on and the lobbying that's going on against these industries is phenomenal. And bottom line is our communities need employees, they need people working, and they work in these industries. And on top of it, it talks about Bill C-69. In conversations with other mayors and reeves in Alberta, there's been study work done on the actual bill, and they believe that it would be very difficult to build the next wastewater treatment plant if Bill C-69 came into place, as an example. So there's some concerns from a municipal level, there's concerns from every industry in Canada that work in resources about being limited to what they're able to do. And I believe as the elected officials of our community, it's important that we speak out for this. And for council's information, I took it upon myself to write a letter to the Senate a week and a half ago requesting that the Senate consider having a hearing in Lloydminster for Bill C-69. The Senate is going to be traveling for hearings. I sent out 50 additional letters to organizations and municipalities, municipal organizations requesting them to help endorse that. And we've had a reply of 6 different letters that have indicated that for my information, they've been sent, but I understand there's more letters sent. Will that make the decision happen? I'm not sure, but we're trying to ensure that the Senate, who's working with Bill C-69, understands it has implications to everyone in this country. And I know there's some that are for it. I believe that the bill, the intention is good. The bill itself has some challenges, and without some rework, it's going to be extremely difficult to move forward with construction projects of any nature in this country. And that will limit us, especially in the energy market, agriculture. If there's no more elevators built, they can't sell any more grain. It's just, the list goes on and on. If someone wants to build a new forest mill, they won't be able to do it if they're proposed through Bill C-69. So I ask the council's support on this motion. When it comes forward, it's, like I say, I've had a chance to speak to both presidents, AUMA and SUMA, and we're preparing to take a message to FCM to help the rest of Canada. And it's quite interesting. I understand the mayor of Quebec City is pro-resource. So that's terrific, but I think there's communities throughout our country on both coasts and in between that still are challenged by understanding what energy and resources do for this country. Comments? Councilor Corson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think it's safe to say I agree with most of what's going on within this. And I think it's important that, even though I'm normally the type of, councillor that says, hey, let's not step on other people's turf, let other levels of government be other levels of government. However, I think it's also important that when given the opportunity to advocate for our community, that we do that. And I think doing it with a voice like AUMA would be pretty beneficial, because that is a much larger voice when we're all speaking together and singing from the same song sheet. My only concern is, and this is possibly my own ignorance, but I don't know exactly what they would be advocating in terms of something like Bill C-69. So even what you were just saying right there is, you said that there's parts that are good to it and there's parts that are bad. I just think it would be important for council to support this, to know what parts are they saying are bad that they're going to advocate, because it's a rather long document. And the amendments are many that have gone on from the first time. So what exactly are we advocating as a group in terms of Bill 669? Is it just that it gets killed completely? Are there parts of it that are good or important to our community that we want to keep in there? But that's my only concern, is that I don't know exactly what we're saying when all we say is Bill C-69 advocacy.
I'll try to respond as best I can, Councillor. There are groups throughout the country that are asking for Bill C-69 to be eliminated. My understanding, and I don't have this verbatim, for AUMA is they believe there's amendments that should be made that they would like to see to ensure that projects such as our wastewater treatment plant can move forward in the future without being bogged down with environmental impact study after environmental impact study. One of the challenges I understand from the federal legislation being proposed is it actually trips over other legislation that's already in place. And, we deal with bylaws ourselves. I think it was an intent that the federal government felt that was their solution. And here we go, thank you, City Clerk. Bill C-69 advocacy. Although many people have termed Bill C-69 as a pipeline bill, we are very concerned that the proposed amendments to Bill C-69 will have significant impacts on municipalities, such as directly impacting municipal land use planning, construction and maintenance of infrastructure, more municipal infrastructure projects falling under federal review, additional financial and administrative costs being added to municipal operations. So that's the basic right there from the municipal perspective of AUMA.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Worship. I guess the input, I really appreciate the input. When I read this, I had a thought. We're talking about municipalities across Canada. Now, we know without saying that we have some wildly different perspectives on resource development in Canada between municipalities. We've been hearing nothing about on the news for the last 2 years about it. So, you brought it up, Bill C-69 pipeline. Part of the country wants pipelines, the other part doesn't want pipeline. So, we've got a clash going before we start. So, for those in favor of certain things to happen that are pro, if you want to call it, pro-resource development, I can't understand why you wouldn't be, unless there's health issues involved. What's this going to do at the end of the day? That's what bothers me, because if we're asking municipalities from coast to coast to sign up, I'm betting there's a lot of blank spots in the nominal roll when you're done, unless I'm reading this wrong. But with the fact that there is so many, now I'm zeroing in on certain things. I don't know the whole picture, or do any of us, I'm sure. But how do you see that?
Well, so basically, I think the important part, that the intention of what's being shared is the factual information regarding resource development interests. I think that's what we feel that is very important, to share the actual facts. So the intention of going to FCM, it's going to be an education. There's going to be a booth, I believe, is what they're hoping to have set up, and brochures talking about how resource development actually aids our municipalities. And in turn, I'm just reaching on this one a little bit, how it affects every municipality in this country. So I think it's the economic impact that resource development has on the entire country. That's the first part. Where it's going to end up, the final step is formalizing and establishing a resource committee and a Communities of Canada Coalition to ensure that the message, the factual message that affects our communities, continues to reach other communities. Because I believe that this whole debate, without going into a federal discussion, it comes down to what information do people actually have, and is it factual? Yeah, if I've read it somewhere, okay, but what facts are they quoting? And we believe that we have a responsibility to help ensure some of those factual, because we have numbers that talk about people that work in our industry, in this community, how it's affecting our community, and hard numbers, so that when we're lobbying other places, helping them understand. I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to talk to someone from Vancouver Island and talk about energy, if that happens at FCM, and I have the opportunity, because I want to try and help put that into perspective, especially when they're drinking out of a plastic glass, such as one of these, and where it came from, and help them understand that the canoe or kayak that that plastic kayak is a Canadian energy product that's been turned into something they use for recreation, and they're very happy to have. And the list goes on, and I think that's, from my perspective, I'm looking forward to that opportunity to carry that message forward, and I think that's what I've heard from other mayors and Reeves in a rural setting, that this impacts people. These people, we all have real lives, and the people that we represent have real lives, and the numbers are staggering, as we know in Alberta. Certainly Saskatchewan is not much off, just that it's a smaller industry, the oil industry, but forestry in Saskatchewan plays a part. Forestry in Alberta plays a part. Mining, if there's no new mines built in Canada, what does that do to the people that make a living in that industry, developing new mines, from geologists to right through to the actual miners that mine every day. So I think the intention is to help bring some awareness and factual awareness from the perspective. And I think that, I hate to add to the pile, but if that's what it takes to help sift through the chaff to get to the grain, that's what we're going to end up being asked to do. And from my perspective, I'm quite prepared to take up the torch on behalf of the city. And I believe Councillor Thorson will be joining us in FCM, and bringing him up to speed, and as we talk about it, making sure that the coalition it's so early in development. There's some pieces I can't give today, the answers, but I know that both organizations, AUMA, SUMA, RMA, and SARM are all on side. They've got the Manitoba contingent, I understand. I haven't seen the official letter. They're on side. Even the British Columbia Municipal Association is working through this, because the bulk of their members are starting to say, yeah, the Trail BC, Fort St. John, British Columbia, Tumbler Ridge, Grand Cache. There's so many places in BC that have effects to this. So I think that the intention is to help try and clear the water, give us some mud, and be factual. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, like I was saying before, I think it's important that we do advocate for our community on a large scale. And I think your answer there as far as what the Bill C-69 advocacy is, I think is the right kind of advocacy, which is what is our role in these actual, the city's, municipalities, different projects that they're doing and the additional costs that'll have to be passed on to taxpayers and users here in our own municipalities. And yeah, I just think that overall, I'm in favor of moving forward and seeing what it looks like. I have some reservation at sometimes with some of these things because I don't like the idea of appearing as though, you know, one municipality is wears a red hat or a blue hat or something like that. I think that there's a fine line and you have to draw it and make sure that you're not getting into other levels of government's politics. But in this case, I don't believe that that's what we're doing. We're simply advocating how our role fits within the context of this potential law. So thank you.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Worship. I think there's also another piece at play in that historically, when oil and gas companies were exploring and developing the natural resources, there weren't a lot of sort of regulations and restrictions around how it could be developed. And so I think in the minds of many is left a sense that these big oil companies are just, you know, making as much money as possible and not taking care of the environment. That narrative is really still what's being exploited by movements out of the U.S. to continue to thwart what I think is the development here in Canada. And I think it's the reality is that narrative isn't real anymore. The standards that Canada abides by is probably the highest anywhere internationally in the world. Some of the cutting edge sort of developments and research that are coming out of these efforts to reduce emissions are producing heavy metals, new strategies on how to transport and bitumen in terms of hockey pucks. All these pieces are rolling out in a way that we haven't seen before. And so these regulations and standards are actually pushing the creative button a little more, and the creative juices are flowing a little more to ensure there's a bit more diversity in the industry. But by having us and other municipalities speak to this, I think what it does do is put another face onto this business and industry. These are regular people getting up in the morning that work in communities that are looking after, and they also, in many instances, work for oil companies, and they are looking after environment. They are looking after the pieces that are important, so that what's left for our children and grandchildren, decades to come, and generations to come, is being looked after. And I think being able to speak up and speak to those pieces takes away from some of the efforts of other people that are wanting to see it only one way. And I remember canoeing many years ago up and right around the Wandering River area, and people saying, "Oh yes, there's, you know, it's all this, you know, pollution in the streams and oils." But when you actually go and canoe down some of these rivers, you know, the streams, you actually see the oil coming out of the ground and going into the streams naturally and on its own. And so there's some of these pieces I think that have been created that they're bigger than life and not real and not accurate. And I think this is an opportunity to change the face of that in a way where, you know, the oil and gas company and other industries can be responsible. They can be taking care of the environment, and most importantly, they still have to and continue to need to be the backbone of our economy. We just don't pull money in the air and say, hey, look, we've got a job doing what? I don't know. Because if you take those industries away, we see what's happened here in our community. So, is everything absolutely perfectly aligned? I think, you know, as Councillor Torsten's asking, probably not. But the reality is at least there's another face in the game talking about the benefits of this piece in our economy. And somewhere in between these truths I think people will find a way through, and if that means different regulations, so what? That's great. If it means, you know, a different approach, then yes, absolutely, let's keep working at it. But to simply sit by idly and not do anything, I think we've done that enough already, and here's an opportunity for us to pitch in.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the coalition as well. I found it interesting that we just had Tim Millen here in Lloydminster last week with the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and they have a 4-step plan that they've got. And so I think that if we work with those, the Petroleum Services Association of Canada, if we work together and that same message is getting out, I think it's very important to have that same message. And I think that we can just add to that and just become stronger overall. So I think I think there's a lot of merit to it.
I think there is, from the perspective of, you know, again, making sure that very clear, concise, and factual message is carried forward. Certainly from a municipal perspective, that's what this is. And you're right, it will align to CAP's message, it will align to the forestry message, it will align to the agricultural producers message, the message that's starting to be spread out. Councilor Miller?
Just had one question. You said right now there's no financial contribution in terms of this. If there was to arise that they wanted a financial contribution, would that come back to council before, or would, being that we already passed the bylaw that we are part of this coalition, would we just automatically be able to do it, or does it have to come back to council?
That would, if there was a request from the AU for funding, that would come back to council.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, I'll ask council for direction on 6.3.1. Councilor Bradshaw.
Move that council resolve to support the Resource Communities of Canada Coalition and that the mayor be authorized to provide letters of support on behalf of the city of Leominster.
Seconder? Councilor Fagan. Any further questions before I call for the final question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 6.3.2. City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject matter is the 2019 proclamations, and the recommendations of council approve proclamations to be provided in 2019 for the Denham Graham Tough CPCA Finals, August 12th to 18th, 2019, as well as the National Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2019. At the June 11th, 2018 regular council meeting, policy 110-01, recognition of members of council is approved. The purpose of the policy is to provide general criteria regarding the recognition of citizens, organizations, and events in a professional and consistent manner. Under the new policy, requests for proclamations must be submitted in October for the following calendar year. Administration developed a proclamation application form on the webpage which clearly outlines the criteria, reached out to organizations who have received proclamations in the past, and put multiple advertisements in the local paper to advertise this change in the process. 8 requests for proclamations in 2019 were received. Administration has performed a review of all requests and is recommending that 2 proclamations be approved for 2019. While administration recognized the importance of the other proclamations, they did not meet the criteria outlined in the policy. All events that are not approved for formal proclamations will still be provided with the option to have the mayor or a member of council attend their event to bring greetings. Having an elected official attend the events showing support from the city is a very important part of the events. And while the information was brought forward, the information was brought forward in December 10th, 2018 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, where administration is directed to bring back a future meeting. Since December, the National Day of Mourning request has been added to the listing, and the 100th anniversary of the Pride of the Prairie event has been removed as the date of the event has passed. The options are that council approve the proclamations provided, or that council provide proclamations to organizations not including the administration's recommendations, or send it back to administration for further work. Back to you, Worship.
Thank you, City Clerk. Questions or comments? Councilor Bradshaw.
Well, I'm kind of confused on this thing, yes, and probably I shouldn't be, but I remember us going over the list of all the possible activities and events and days and whatnot that could be celebrated and honored, and with proclamations and the like. And yet, even when we advertise, we get a total of 8 or 9. So, in terms of the efficacy of something like this, I'm trying to, are these the only ones that kind of meet it, or help me understand more about this?
Clerk.
I would expect that because this is a new process for a lot of the communities and organizations in our town, that we will see probably some come in over the course of the year. We understand that, and the policy does allow for us to bring the one-offs towards council.
Okay.
But as it's a new thing, that's why we're expecting to see some. It's going to take time for people to fall into this.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I should have reviewed the bylaw. I'm just wondering why this National Day of Child celebration, but National Day of Mourning is in there, but the National Child Day of Celebration. Like, what's the 2 criteria? And I know we made this, and I know we passed this and asked for this, but I just want to clarify what the difference would be for those 2 in particular. Was there some things missing on their application, or?
I don't think I'll speak to each individual, but I'll.
Right.
The criteria is a significant event that impacts the whole community, or a personal or organizational outstanding achievement deserving the merit of the highest degree, especially in the service of the city of Leominster and the community at large, and when it was reviewed, the two that we selected met those two criteria.
Absolutely, and I remember us specifically saying that it had to be something that could impact the entire community. So that makes perfect sense, thank you.
Councilor Beck?
And I'm assuming that there's not a whole pile of applications because they're reading the criteria and find that they don't meet that criteria and henceforth wouldn't put forward an application.
I think what we've received is what we received, and our feedback has been that they really do like to have a mayor or a member of council attend and bring greetings and that, and that's just as equally important for them.
Any other comments?
Yeah, you know, and it's a personal thought. I mean, I was watching the news and looking at Canada having one of the highest rates of MS around the world, and how you not support it, I guess, almost flies in the face of wanting to see something that could affect and impact anybody and everybody in the community as well. But and we also have a high prevalence rate within our own community. Just sort of, I don't know.
So, as the city clerk indicated, I tried to make myself, and I know other members of council have also stepped forward when requested, but my calendar, I tried to make every event I've been invited to ensure that the city acknowledges the work that goes on, thanking volunteers, bringing greetings on behalf of the city, and it certainly has been appreciated. The groups and media, our local media, have been very good at helping promote those. I think that, from a proclamation perspective, and I look back over the last 2.5 years, some of the proclamations I signed, never heard a thing about. We signed it, and it was gone, where others, such as MS, and I give the MS committee a great deal of credit because they do a lot of work in the community, and as you said, it is one that touches it. But, Canadian Cancer Society, I think everyone in this room has been touched by someone with cancer. The list is long and endless. There's some that aren't worthy of mentioning because I get bombarded in email on a regular basis from our proclamations, and it's terrific. But I think that if there's a local organization that would like support from City Council and will be acknowledged by the city, I look around at this room and I look to all the council members that if I'm not available, I'll be reaching out to you, asking you to attend. And usually it falls usually to the deputy mayor, and in some cases if that doesn't fit schedules, I will reach out to, or we will reach out to additional members of this council to ensure that we have representation. The comment I've got back from people is, just as the city clerk said, they appreciate having us there. Simply by acknowledging what's going on, we've had good response. Councilor Buckley.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's probably worth noting that it's not that City Council or anybody isn't supporting all the rest of those things on the list. Right? There's a criteria to have somebody come in here and make a proclamation within council chambers. And I've talked to different community organizations about this, and I'll echo the sentiments that they're happy to have someone from council there at their event. That's a big thing. I'll be attending the MS walk on the mayor's behalf because he's gone that day and bringing greetings on behalf of the city to the walk that morning. As one example, we've all done it and we'll all continue to do it. But the other comment I got back was, we appreciate that support coming out to the event. Yeah, we don't need to come into council when council needs to be dealing with the governance priorities of this city. We don't need to take up that time in here. What we want is some recognition, and the fact that you guys are coming to these events is a big deal to us. So I'm in agreement with that, and I just want to make it clear that this council is not supporting lots of different events in this community, because we are. It's just that they're not coming in to do a specific proclamation for it.
Councilor. Any other comments? Not seeing any, I'll ask for direction on 6.3.2. Councilor Dutch.
Jeez. I'm glad to put my hand ahead of everybody else right now. That's very much. I move that council approve proclamation be provided in 2019 for the Denham's Ramtuff CPCA finals, August 12th to 18th, 2019, as well as the National Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2019.
Seconded. Councilor Monroe. Any further comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the agenda. 6.5, the city manager.
Thank you, Worship. To present 6.5.1, Lloydminster Golf and Hurling Center fees, I'll ask Joel Turcotte on board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I'm here today to present the golf, squash, and meeting room fees at the LGCC. Recommendation is that council approve the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center fees for golf, squash, court, and meeting rooms as presented. As you know, during the October 15, 2018 regular council meeting, council approved the dissolution of the Lloydminster Facilities Corporation as of December 31st, 2018. As part of the approved service model for the LGCC, administration successfully contracted both the restaurant and the pro shop services to vendors in the community. The golf season is expected to be starting soon, and administration has reviewed the changes and recommends the attached fees for the 2019 season. As part of the facility changes, squash usage and fees have been also reviewed by administration. Administration is recommending that the golf membership fees remain the same with a couple of changes that I will point out later. For the 2019 seasons, with exceptions of fees related to the youth 11 and under. After reviewing past sales performance, administration recommends removing the youth 11 and under memberships and creating a youth 8 to 11 memberships at $75, and further allow children 7 and under to golf for free with a guardian. Administration also recommends grandfathering with $45 lifetime charge to those members. So for those members, there's about 16 of them, and this happened prior to LGC's, the city of Lloydminster taking over the Golf and Curling Center about 10 years ago. What it was a cash donation to LGCC, I believe, to build actually a second 9-hole course. And so with that, they would have been given the $45 lifetime membership fee that they pay annually. Administration has made small changes to green fees that include defining ages for junior 8 to 18, and once again ensuring that children 7 and under are able to access the golf course free of charge with a guardian. LGCC will also offer green fee books, 10 passes, and similar to other City of Lloydminster facility, users will be able to purchase 10 for the price of 9. Prices for the driving range and club storage have not changed from last season. After reviewing squash court access, pass usage, administration is recommending the fees as attached. Administration also recommends that users must be a member, squash member, to access the courts. This will allow easy usage of the courts and easy payment options for customers. So your options are there. Approve LGCC squash courts and meeting room fees as presented. Or second, the council recommend changes to the percentage fees be brought back to future council meeting. The decision may delay collecting of fees. The golf season is up and coming. 3, the council requests additional information and administration to be brought back to a future council meeting. The option may delay the collection of fees and would delay being able to start selling memberships at LGCC. So we can go into the graph and I can just point out a couple of changes if you wish. You'll notice that the junior, that didn't change. The youth 11 and under was $255. We sold 0 of those last year, so those are why we are changing it. We're changing it to youth 8 to 11, it's a $75 fee, and child 7 and under are free. Other than that, the next one that's different is under the carts. The green fees. Once again, it's just the same changes with the ages. The child 7 and under are free. Junior 8 to 18, we just made sure to define what a junior was in that category. The last change is the golf tournament. We didn't have an approved price for 27 holes. We did have one tournament last year. I believe they were actually given the 18-hole cost. They're using 27 holes, so we thought it was right to increase it just a little bit, $68.25. And then finally, the squash courts, there was some massive changes. Administration kind of compared prices that we have for other facilities, like the Service Sports Center, which I believe a 1-year membership is $400, and kind of looked at usage and said that we should maybe lower it. We took out the daily rate. We don't, as you know, don't have many staff at LGCC to collect fees, so by charging a membership, it makes life a little bit easier that way. And with the cost, we figured that it was a worthwhile venture. The other one that we changed was Peter Kushner meeting room. The 6 hours or more, we didn't have a approved price for that from the Facilities Corporation. We did similar math as the other meeting rooms in the city, so 6 hours or more is cost, I believe it's the 6 hour price. If you multiply 1 hour by 6, you get $189. Other than that, I'll await any questions you may have.
Councilor Barnett.
Thank you, Worship. Well, we've got that graphic up there. Does this require a little bit more detail? Just on the last one, the 6 hours or more. Does it need to say per day or something there? Because I want it for 6 hours, but I'm also going to use it for the next 3 days. So I just wondered if that had to be clarified in the schedule at all, if it's 6 hours or more or multiple days.
It's, we can clarify that, absolutely. It is the same as every other meeting room of that size that the city of Lloydminster charges, so it's a per day charge.
And I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure what it says in there was accurate.
Absolutely.
I'm not questioning the price.
Absolutely.
And the second thing was, you and I discussed it a little bit because I had a question about being a member of the squash area. So I couldn't come in there as a non-member and just use the squash courts. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit while you're bringing forth the recommendation you are.
Absolutely. So when we discussed the changes to LGC's direction, at that time, administration wasn't sure what we could do with the squash courts. We considered possibly even use of free of charge. Since then, I've been able to talk to our legal team. I've been able to talk to our insurance. We're able to provide the space at LGCC during hours where no employees may be through some different options. And therefore, with the increased usage, we are able to charge and charge for use kind of thing.
So does their membership give them an access card or something like that? Because we don't have the staff there that we once did. How do they access the courts?
Absolutely. So there's a waiver form that was made up between our insurance and our legal team to prevent liability and to help us with liability. They're given an access card, like you said, similar to ones that we use on internal doors. They're able to get in through the the north side of, on the lower staircase, and there's a punch pass as well, and then there's internal locks that they cannot get into.
Thank you.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just curious on the squash court, on squash court one, whether or not there's any kind of discount you could get if you already have like an annual membership to Service Sports Center or something like that. Just in case you get someone who wants to play squash, but would they, in this scenario, they'd have to have a membership to both of them?
Currently,
I just wonder if it's not a terrible idea to just create one more where maybe you get in at the student rate or something if you already have a membership to the Service Sports Center. Because I know with some of our other facilities, you can get kind of the dual locations. You can get the Bud Miller one combined with the Service Sports Center. Is that correct?
yes, you can get a joint between the BioClinic Aquatics and the Service Sports Center.
Yeah, that's probably what I said. The brain's not working. I just wonder if we could do something similar here. The only other comment I had was just around, what we're doing with the rates as far as the juniors and stuff, and I think it's great. It was funny. I was trying to find, some information. I was reading articles, and I found several that were saying that golf is, surging in popularity. I also found several that said golf is losing popularity at an alarming rate. But in either case, I think it's important that, if this is a true municipal recreation facility, that, you're providing this facility at a price that young people can afford and can go out and get into the sport, and hopefully you're, creating little golfers out there who can go outside and have fun and do some healthy activities and things like that. So I'm a big supporter of what we're doing with that fee, and I think that it'll pay off in the long run. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Joelle, I had one question about the lifetime memberships to the golf course. Once a member of that group, the 16, passes away, that lifetime membership will cease to exist. Is that correct on that?
That's true, yes.
So certainly people that, I think Councilor Baker can shared with us how the 9 holes happened. It took a group of people in this community, both businesses, individuals, organizations, to make us to an 18-hole course that we have today. I'm very proud of it. I think that it's a great recognition for those people that made significant contributions at that time. From that perspective, but it's not one of those things that people ask, well, is that a perpetuity thing that they can hand off to somebody? It's very clean and clear and concise, and they won't golf anymore. There won't be a lifetime membership. So, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. I'll look for council for direction on 6.5.2. Councilor Button.
The council approval of Mr. Golf and Curling Center Golf, Squash Court, and Meeting Room fees as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Baker. Before I call for the question, any other comments? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Joel. Moving on to 6.5.2. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 6.5.2 Recreation Access Program Policy, I'll ask Patrick Lancaster to come forward.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Patrick.
I didn't expect to be back in front of the Council to speak to the Recreation Access Program so soon. However, in the process of developing our rollout for the Recreation Access Program that was approved at the January 18th Council meeting, January 28th Council meeting, a issue was brought to our attention in regards to the eligibility criteria as it would apply to residents in our community. The current financial eligibility threshold for the Recreation Access Program is set at the low income cutoff after tax, which would put it at about $17,536 for a single adult resident income annually. And it was brought to our attention that for persons receiving the Assured Income for the Severely Disabled, or AISH as it's more commonly known, would not be eligible for the program under the current wording of the policy. This is not in alignment with our intent when we set out and put the program together, or with the conversations that we had with our community partners. It was our intent from the beginning to ensure that residents who are receiving AISH or SED, which is the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability, who represent some of the more vulnerable residents in our community, were able to access and able to benefit from the program. So in order to make sure that residents who are receiving AISH and are receiving SED are able to equally access the program, we have brought back an amendment to the policy, or I guess a revision to the policy, that would expand the eligibility criteria for persons who are receiving AISH, receiving SED, or fall under the low-income cutoff after tax. By choosing the low-income cutoff after tax, it was our hope to set sort of a standardized bar by which incomes could be evaluated for the program that would be consistent across the community. We also stuck with the low-income cutoff, or LICO, as its acronym is, because there was readily available data on the numbers in our community. We anticipate about 1,800 residents fall under the low-income cutoff after tax, and it provides a starting point for the program. Some other communities have adopted a threshold level, which is the low-income cutoff after tax plus a percentage. So, for example, Grand Prairie has set their eligibility for the program at LICO plus 30%. This has been done in several communities that have been running the program for multiple years, who have a good sense of what their uptake of the program is, and know what kind of numbers to expect. And as their program has developed and grown, they've expanded their eligibility criteria. Our department hopes to evaluate the uptake of the program over the course of 2019 and come back to council early 2020 with the results of the uptake of the program, and with I guess information about any recommendations or feedback we receive from the public about changes or alterations that we might make in the future. So as having said that, are there any questions?
Questions or comments for Patrick? Councilor Monroe.
I'll just make a quick comment. I obviously saw the need for this prior to, but I've had residents recently, I was engaging with someone at the Service Sports Center, just for example, and they were so excited about this program because she currently takes her husband to walk the track, but they literally can't afford to have her walk with him. So having this program in place is going to enable that. So I didn't really understand. I knew that there was a need for it, but to understand just how many people I think will be utilizing this is very exciting, really, and for our residents to be excited about it, it's, yeah, great. I'm very excited to have this in place.
Thank you for sharing that. And to that point, I actually have 2 calls on my desk pending the outcome of this meeting for me to follow up on regards to how to apply and get into the program. We're all set, and it just to have the website up and running for tomorrow morning.
I just think it shows again how proactive our community is to really try to include everybody, and everybody has equal opportunity to experience our resources. So thank you very much for that.
Any other comments?
Sure.
Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I was just looking into the low-income cutoff thing, and one of the stories I came across is that the federal government has changed the standard in which they are measuring low-income poverty, and they've changed to something called Market Basket Measure, or MBM. And I was wondering, why did we choose low-income cutoff? Because the federal government's argument is that MBM is a better measure of poverty. Just curious. And I did kind of set Patrick up that I was going to ask this because it's not an easy question.
So when we were developing the program and setting the criteria, a couple of things came to mind. The federal government does release data and use different measures for low income. In fact, they use the low income cutoff, the low income cutoff after tax, and the market basket measure. Both the low income cutoff after tax, market basket measure, say that 5 times fast. Market basket measure are excellent ways of determining if someone is in poverty, but there's a little bit of difference between them. And of course, being Lloydminster, we have some uniqueness to that data as well. So the low-income cutoff after tax is essentially determined by the threshold, it's the income by which a family is likely to spend 20% or more of their income on the necessities, so food, shelter, clothing, and it's factored in that the tax system it takes funding away and redistributes it in a way that their actual spending income afterwards will be varied. Whereas so the after-tax measure is considered more accurate than the before-tax measure. Market basket approach is more of a calculated basket of goods and services, including your food, your shelter, and clothing and transportation, times a multiplier to cover some of the other essentials. And it sort of represents the thresholds of income needed to cover the costs of the basket. Where it gets a bit more complicated for Lloydminster's low-income cutoff is sort of a broad cross-Canada number, whereas the market basket measure in some ways is more accurate. It's indexed by province. So Saskatchewan has a market basket measure. Alberta has a market basket measure with a variance of about $1,000 variance between the two of them. The threshold levels for market basket measure are a little bit higher than the low-income cutoff after tax. With Alberta's for a similar sized population being about 20,389, and the Saskatchewan being, it was about $2,000 difference, 18,216 for a Saskatchewan resident. So about a $2,000 difference between the two. We went with the low-income cutoff after tax because it does present a slightly lower number, which will allow us to evaluate the intake of how many residents we get applying for the program and potentially expand up from there. We're starting with a higher number. We weren't sure what we were going to get. The low-income cutoff after tax also had more readily available data to base our projections off, the modeling for how many people would uptake the program. So we favored that one over the market basket measure.
Council.
I'm gonna be honest, I understood everything he said, so I'm really proud of myself. Great job, Patrick, in explaining that. I was reading papers trying to understand it, and you explained it in a much clearer way. I think it's a good idea that we're starting at this point, as far as using low income after tax. My only thoughts is that, and maybe it's you know, as we're kind of downturned out west, maybe it's not as big of a concern. But I know, you know, when I was going to university applying for student loans, my parents were very well off, we'll say, by the Saskatchewan standards of whether or not you were low income. But because it was in Lloydminster and the cost of living was pretty high in terms of housing and things like that, it's not exactly a fair measure. So if the low income threshold is looking at Canada as a whole and is applying that standard, there's different places within Canada where, you know, you're getting an average of those things, whereas the other one maybe is a little more targeted to the cost of living to where we are. So, yeah, I think there may be some merit in considering it in the future, but I think your rationale for why you chose this one, I think is perfectly reasonable, and yeah, good work. Thank you.
Challenge that was a well-defined explanation.
I think I'll take my access to Patrick.
Yeah. He's got good interpretation. Any other questions or comments of Patrick? Well, Patrick, thank you for your presentation, and again, thank you for your work on this project. I'll leave it to council to set its direction here shortly and how we move forward. So with that, I'll look for direction from council on 6.5.2. Councilor Buckingham.
Council approved policy number 551-02, the recreation access policy as amended.
Seconder, Councilor Baker. Before I call for the question, any other comments? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Patrick. Oh, I don't think you want to go too far. As I look at the agenda, 6.5.3, City Manager. Back to you, Patrick.
Good afternoon, Council. So the SSS Advisory Committee has reviewed grants for the 2019-2020 Saskatchewan Lotteries grant season and has provided some recommendations to Council for approval. Just a quick refresher, the Saskatchewan Lotteries Community Grant Program is a partnership between municipalities and Sask Sport, Sask Culture, and Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. Essentially, they gave us a pot of money based on our population to be invested in sport, culture, and recreational pursuits with a priority towards underrepresented populations. I'm very pleased to say that because of the new census data for Lloydminster, our community has received an increase in the amount of funds that are available to distribute out to nonprofits, up to $81,414 from the previous allotted amount of $67,222. So those census data numbers really do make a difference for us. On March 12th, sorry, my apologies. From November 1st to January 17th, a call for applications was posted in the community, and 17 applications were received, totaling $137,340 in requests for funding. The FCSS Advisory Committee met to review the applications based on project eligibility, underrepresented populations, impact on the community, accessibility, financial need, community need, and the budgets presented in the applications, and has made the following recommendations for allocation. $10,000 for the Lloydminster Interval Home Society towards the Lloydminster Community Youth Center Recreation and Support Program. $8,900 for the Roman Catholic Separate School Division for the Youth Sports Explorers and Free Adult Family Gym Nights. $8,000 for the Lloydminster Air Cadets program. $6,440 towards the Lloydminster Housing Authority for the senior fitness classes. $5,000 for the Lloydminster Archives for the project of digitizing the old New Camp footage. $2,574 for the Libby Young for their summer recreation program, $7,250 for Inclusion Lloydminster for the recreation liaison. On the report, it's listed as Lloydminster Association for Community Living. That's their legal name still. $9,000 to the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy for the Lloydminster Youth Council. This is for their for the activities that the Youth Council team put on. They have received other funding from the city for the coordinator positions who help to direct the Youth Council. $1,500 to the Lloydminster Area Brain Injury Society for BrainFit. $7,250 to the Lloydminster Learning Council Association for connections for newcomers. This is a sort of an inclusion and integration project where newcomers are taken to different recreation opportunities around the city and given a chance to try different recreational things that are offered in our community. $5,500 to the Lloydminster Native Friendship Center for connecting us, all diversity and inclusion forums. So this will be something of a multicultural speaking forum where different cultures will be shared at the Native Friendship Center in partnership with the local immigration partnership. And then $10,000 for the Lloydminster Special Olympics for the Special Olympics. And I guess at this point, does council have any questions?
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to talk, thanks Patrick for that. Just want to talk about one thing that Patrick mentioned about those census numbers and the increase, right? So because of that, we had a $14,200 increase to the funding that we had available to allocate through this grant based on people filling out their census numbers and having that increase, which is great. So it just speaks to the importance of making sure that when those things come around, you fill them out for the few minutes it takes you. The kind of impact it can have on the community is great. So that's good. Interestingly enough, even with a just shy of $15,000 increase, we were still short $56,000 to the requests. So it speaks to what's going on in the community. The community did everything they could to fund what they could, but there was still $56,000 more requested than was available. So when we talk about filling out those census numbers, it just kind of gives you some meat and potatoes behind the fact that the need is still out there and those things are important. So just wanted to throw those out there.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Fagin.
I'm assuming, Patrick, as well, that these requests, they're not getting the full amount in most cases. They get what they need, or are these the full amounts that they've been asked?
Not all projects are receiving their full ask. The committee reviews them, and in some cases, when there's not enough funds to go around, they look for, are there some opportunities of things that could be cut, and then still offer the program.
Patrick, I haven't done my calculator running, but I'm looking at some of the numbers. That's the total allocation of $81,414 is what we've given to the council today, correct?
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Just to speak to Councillor Fagin's point on this, as someone who sits on the committee, I can tell you that these requests were all gone through with a fine-tooth comb. The binder comes out, everybody has lots of time to review them, and then when it comes down to it, it is certainly not an easy decision by anybody around that table as to how the money is split out. A lot of thought goes into it, and you're right, some of those funding requests aren't for the full amount, but there are those that we can help more by funding some a little less and still manage to make sure their programs go off. The committee was very cognizant to make sure that they weren't underfunding, overfunding, because the worst thing you can do too is underfund something, and it doesn't do its potential by giving it this grant. So I can assure you that those things were very carefully considered. As you'll see, some of the numbers are a little bit weird, like $74 here or $44 there. It comes right down to that. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for serving on that committee. I think that's one that is a tough one, because when you're allocating dollars, that's always a challenge. I appreciate your involvement in that committee. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Patrick. I'll look to Council for direction on 6.5.3. Councilor Buckingham.
Council approve the following grant allocations and authorize the FCSS Advisory Committee to reallocate any unused or returned grant funds. $10,000 to the Lloydminster Interval Home Society for the LCYC Recreation Support Program, $8,900 to the Lloydminster Roman Catholic Separate School Division number 89 for youth sports explorers and free adult family gym nights, $8,000 to the Lloydminster Air Cadets 186 Squadron Inc. for 186 Air Cadets, $6,440 to the Lloydminster Housing Authority for household classes, $5,000 to the Lloydminster District Centennial Commemorative Association for saving and sharing the Midwest televised history, $2,574 to the Libby Young Center Inc. for the summer recreation program, $7,250 to the Lloydminster Association for Community Living for a recreation liaison, $9,000 to the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy for the Lloydminster Youth Council, $1,500 to the Lloydminster Area Brain Injury Society for BrainFit, $7,250 to the Lloydminster Learning Council Association for Lloydminster Connections for Newcomers, $5,500 to the Lloydminster Native Friendship Center for Connecting Us All, Diversity and Inclusion Forum, and $10,000 to the Lloydminster Special Olympics for Special Olympics donors.
Councillor Seconder, Councillor Baker. Any further questions or comments before I call for the final question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the agenda. Moving to item number 7. Is there any correspondence or information? Mayor and council reports. I don't have a council report or a mayor report attached at this time. We'll leave that for the next meeting, but certainly Saturday was a very entertaining day for myself and about 12 other participants. I'd like to thank the Fred North Foundation for ensuring that I had the opportunity to ask for $15,000 from the community to dive into the Polar Splash, and Fred and Lily made sure that happened. It was a great event to see a number of people from the community organizations step forward to take the polar plunge, and indeed the water was cold. And, it was one that I won't forget very easily, but it was a great experience and a very worthy cause. It was a great turnout. And following that was the Battle of the Badges, the Gustafson Memorial Hockey Game, and turned out well. I've had conflicting reports. I wasn't able to stay for the final game. Certainly there was discussions about a tie game. Somebody might have won. I'm not sure what the trophy is, so we'll wait to see where that comes to fruition. But again, it's been another great busy couple of weeks. I did attend the 100th anniversary sale for the Pride of the Prairies Bowl sale. And, you know, we talk about the Lloyd exhibition quite regularly here and the involvement of the community and the rural community, but to hear some of the information that goes back since 1919, and at the height, there was over 700 bulls brought into the community and sold in a 3-day span. To this day, a lot of those producers now have their own bull sales because, as we've talked about in this area, 60% of Western Canadian breeding stock originates within 150 kilometers of this city. And those people have direct ties to the community, support the community every day. The community supports them. It's incredible to see the history from that perspective. So another fine event. The next couple weeks I think will be very interesting from a political perspective. We have one speech coming out in Edmonton on next Monday, council meeting day, GPC meeting day, followed by a provincial budget being dropped in Alberta and Saskatchewan on the 20th of March, and in between there, the 19th, the federal budget will be delivered. So I guess we can stay tuned for further news of everything and anything from the 3 respective governments. So from that perspective, that's all I have to add at this time. I'll look to council if there's anyone that has any reports of any sort that they'd like to share. Councilor Monroe.
So just sitting on the DART committee, I just wanted to thank everyone who did participate in the online survey, as well as the people that came out for the 3 days of engagement, the city staff and administration that was there to help on the weekends and after hours to make sure that those engagement sessions ran really smoothly. Having had the opportunity for those 3 days to engage with our residents during the DART sessions, I had a large number of individuals express their personal concerns and their current hardships due to the economic downturn. So I do appreciate and recognize the council has passed the budget and all the effort that the staff has put into it. But I also respect the residents of our community and that they voted the 7 of us in to make the best decisions and be their voice for the community. So understanding that the assessment is down from current years, I would ask that the city manager communicate with his different managers and departments to see if we've already maybe had some cost savings. We're going into the second quarter, so maybe we've already had some cost savings in different departments, and just see if there's any way, I'm not saying that we can, but just asking the questions that if there's any major projects that could possibly be delayed or anything, even if it's a 0.025%, just so that the residents of our community know that we are doing our due diligence. I don't expect them to dig back into the budget in the finance department at all, but just to at least contact your managers and see if there's anywhere that we can shade a little bit. And no rush getting that back to us, just I would hope before we set the mill rate that you can report back to us with that information.
Yeah, thanks for that opportunity. We will, before the tax rate is brought, we will bring forward, if there are some opportunities, we will look at them and bring them forward if necessary. There may be the other way as well, where we have some projects that may cost a little bit more money as a result of a tender, or so we'll look at both ways to see if there are some things that we can do to, I guess at the end of the day, it's up to council whether you want us to do that or not, but we'll look at some options.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments, reports from council? Special.
Thank you, Worship. I gave each of you a hard copy of our administrative report from the Carnegie Lodge. That number of 111 people still were the witness for the lodge itself, and I think we have 22 for the house. So, you know, there's a significant demand in our community and services that we have. And certainly the one area that still continues to be, I think, a challenge is that on the Saskatchewan side, or the Saskatchewan government is really not doing very much to increase its spaces. And typically what we see is Saskatchewan residents move to the Alberta side, live here for 3 months, and then are given Alberta designation and get the supports that the Alberta government provides, and yet have not contributed to the tax base at all throughout their careers and lifetimes. And so it is a bit challenging around it. The rules are the rules, and that's what pardon me, people are allowed to do. I guess from our perspective in the community, it's one of the challenges is making sure we can keep people who are wanting to retire and use that and access the lodge because they have family near and close by, as opposed to going elsewhere that's further away. That's part of our challenge, and at some point, I think, again, with meetings with either health or housing, I'm not sure, probably health would be the one, but something we could do is to potentially, again, lobby for more supports within our community, and sort of maybe giving greater detailed explanation about this process of really offloading Saskatchewan costs to Alberta.
Councillor, if I could ask this, in discussions with various people I have, is that information being provided to the two MLAs as well as both ministries, Saskatchewan Health and Administration and Saskatchewan Health Services?
I can't tell yes or no, don't know. Certainly I haven't shared it, but I think I know again. At the table level, I think anyways, because one of the questions I asked at our last meeting is what information are other people sharing back, with their respective councils, and basically it's the administrative report. I've redacted the names. There's a section there from residents. But that really what you see there is kind of the information everybody is sharing. It might be incumbent upon us, and that maybe it's something through the RRA that we may want to take on as a common front as a topic, and we've talked about trying to set some priorities going forward in the future. That might be one, but it might be also priority going in that direction with our Wilton and Britannia as colleagues to lobby on behalf of the residents in that area as well.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that I certainly have no problem carrying the torch forward as the mayor, but I just want to make sure we're not double confused.
At this point, I couldn't tell yes or no. I can ask.
So if you wouldn't mind to just let me know outside the council chambers, and we can follow that through to ensure that information, because I think that's one of the challenges. As we've had conversations around health care, what information gets to who, and I think that's what's critical. And if we have to be the conduit again, as we usually are between two provincial governments and trying to help this wheel along, we can certainly do that. So we can be of assistance.
Well, I know when we met with health at one time with the new administration and the regionalization, my sense in the discussion was that Sask Health is very aware of the challenge and recognizing that it's an issue not just for us in Lloydminster, but across the province.
Absolutely. And certainly have no problem moving forward to our
MLAs for ourselves
and our ministers. Anyone else to add to this great list of items for the community.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's that fun time of year again that accountants love, and I've been a part of a group for the last 3 years that does personal tax returns for newcomers to Canada, seniors, and people with low income. And we're doing it again basically every Saturday. The ones that are at the Legacy Center are by appointment, so I believe you need to contact the Legacy Center, and those are every Saturday in March. And then most of April will be at Synergy Credit Union. I think it's every Saturday except for the Saturday that Easter is on. So we'll be doing taxes with students from Lakeland and folks from the Legacy Center, and then some folks who work at Synergy Credit Union, and we got some CPAs that go and review all the information after the students prepare it. Pretty slick program. Last year, or the first year we did something like 300 returns. The next year we did 450 returns. And then this year, it sounds as though the library isn't able to do it, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get over 600 returns. So, you know, at $100 a pop, if you were to take that to H&R Block, that's like $60,000. So that we would have raised for those groups in the community. So really looking forward to getting as many people out there as possible. The students love getting, you know, long lines of people coming to get them done, because it means that they get more efficient at it. And I don't know, it's a great program that I'm really proud to be a part of. So if anyone knows anyone who's in those scenarios, please send them in our direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I was just going to add one more thing. We had the VRRA annual general meeting. One of the topics that did come up is the focus and priorities of the regional group. And at this point, there has been one singular one, which has been, we're looking at broadband as a utility. And one of the pieces that Your Worship and I brought forward is that as a group, we'd like to see a range of priorities, if you like. So at our next meeting, what we're asking for, at least 2 or 3, perhaps even 4 priorities, because lately, probably the last 5 or 6 meetings have been around broadband and really are irrelevant to us. And so when we raise the, I guess that issue, plus looking at the terms of reference that were given, which were the 2017 copy, we're operating, a couple of them are operating from 2001. And so we have to correct some of the steps and processes in there, but it really does speak towards shared priorities within the region that will benefit all the region. And so we tried to make sure that was kind of the sense of it in the nicest and gentlest of ways that we could do. And so I'm hoping that in our next meeting, perhaps even the senior residents may be one of the priorities we bring forward as a source of lobbying.
I think it's great. Last call for any council reports. Not seeing any more, I'll move to item number 9. Is there any other matters that this council needs to deal with at this time? Not seeing any, I will look for inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have media requests for yourself, Mayor Albers, as well as Councillor Torreson and Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you. I will look to council for direction on recess.
I'll move forward inside recess.
Seconder? Councillor Fagin, all in favor? Carried.